Good evening and welcome to this digitally enabled online meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth held on Monday, April 27th, 2020. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the Deputy Clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. Today's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after the meeting as an archived video. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Thank you for your consideration in these matters. I appreciate the councillors who are here with me, albeit virtually, to participate in this meeting. Since our first two meetings done online did experience various hiccups, I'll ask for a bit of patience and forgiveness for any that occur this evening. Patience and forgiveness are key concepts right now, and I encourage these in our very changed lives. The staff continues to do great work. Special recognitions to Clerk Bearfeltz and her team, which has been very proactive in getting an emergency childcare center to North Perth. I am pleased to announce that we expect the opening of this emergency childcare center to be situated at the North Perth Spinrite Childcare Center later this week. It took a little longer than expected to get here, but not from a lack of effort by our staff to get it done. I also want to bring to our collective attention the work with Community Development Coordinator Kim Couch and CAO Chris Snell in getting us to rapid deployment of the new e-marketplace for local businesses, which we are calling Shop Local North Perth. And more information about this will be pending this week. All of our staff has put in Herculean effort and they deserve our thanks. Let us move then to item 2.1 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with pecuniary interest, including those who have declared in advance of this meeting, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect using the protocols described by the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should a potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. I'll call first on Deputy Mayor Kellum, who has expressed in writing already for his declaration. Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. This is Deputy Mayor Kellum. I am going to disclose pecuniary interest on three items. The first one being 5.2.1 is I am an employee with Ideal Supply. 5.4.1, the accounts is my mother and father-in-law are tenants at Perth Metals, as well 13.1, the confirmatory bylaw.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Kellum. And I believe Councillor Behrens would like to make a declaration as well. Councillor Behrens.
Yes, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest with the accounts 5.4.1 and as well 13.1, as under normal conditions, I would have grandchildren attending the North Perth Spinrite Child and Family Center. I realize that the daycare is closed. However, there is ongoing costs and finances being contributed to the Child and Family Center. So I will continue to declare at this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Behrens, and we hope for so many of our families that we will have opportunities to those wonderful services soon again. Any other councillors wish to declare a pecuniary interest at this time that haven't already done so? So please indicate to the clerk through the chat box. Seeing no indication of that, let us move on to a brief explanation again to our viewing public and to councillors of the processes that we will use this evening. To explain these processes, I will be systematically trying to seek consent from various councillors as movers and seconders of the various resolutions and bylaws that will be put before us tonight. I will do this alphabetically. Should a councillor not wish to respond to the request, they may say so, and I will move to the next name on the alphabetical list. Regarding speaking to our business, councillors tonight will identify themselves through our conferencing technologies chat function. The clerk is assisting me tonight in maintaining the speaking order from that source. Councillors are allowed on their turn to deliver a primary question or comment and may make one supplemental without my recognition. We will follow speaking order carefully, and any councillor wishing to have a second say after their primary and supplemental will have to indicate again to the clerk their intentions and go to the bottom of the speaker's list. This is a normal process consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. Councillors are reminded that if I believe you are not audible, I will call on you. You do not need to ask if you can be heard. I'll be the arbiter of that. Councillors are further asked to maintain a mute state in the web conference until I have called upon you for a verbal reaction. Should any of your votes not show up in eScribe, our voting system, I will call on you when things seem stalled to register a manual vote. At that time, take yourself off mute, answer yes or no on the motion, then return to mute. Now let's do some business. Regarding item 2.2 of our agenda, I have a motion before me for the adoption of the agenda for tonight's meeting that reads as follows: that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. And I invite Councillor Andreessen to be our mover for this.
Yeah.
Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And can I invite Councillor Anstett to be your second?
Yes, I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councillors, if you wish to participate in the discussion, please so indicate in the chat window. Seeing no indication from the clerk, let's have that vote. It's not showing up any script for me. It's generally not a good sign. And me. Councillor Andreessen, we're not registering a vote for you. What say you?
Yes, I'll vote for that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor, who was the last one, clerk? Councillor Duncan, we're not seeing your vote here either.
I'm in favor.
Thank you. And I'll register a vote in favor as well, which means that the motion is carried. I'm just going to relog into eScribe myself just to see if I can restore connectivity to this. Bear with me, councillors. Okay. Thank you. That's item 2.2. Let's move on to item 3 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. These items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they require council's approval. And generally we group them, although tonight we only have one item on our consent agenda. So councillors, if any of you wish to discuss the minutes of last meeting, the regular council meeting that was held last week, I invite you to indicate your desire to speak to that to the clerk through the chat function. Clerk, any indication? Seeing none, then I have a motion here to address the consent agenda and previous minutes that reads as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approved the minutes of the April 20th, 2020 regular council meeting. Can I call on Councillor Bairns to be our mover for this one?
I will move the consent agenda.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, will you serve as our seconder?
I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? If there is, please indicate to the clerk your intention to speak. Seeing no indication, let's have that vote. Councillor Johnston, we're not receiving your vote. What say you?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. And Councillor Duncan, what say you?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Then that is carried. That brings us next to item 4 on our agenda. We have no public meetings or delegations for this evening's meeting. I think that's in large because we're trying to figure out how that works. But we'll get back to people on that soon enough. That brings us to agenda item number 5. And for agenda item number 5.1, while the agenda shows no written report, CAO Snell has asked if he might give a verbal report to council, which I've consented to. So I'll call at this time on CAO Chris Snell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And as the practice have been, I'm just going to give a brief update on municipal operations. As of now, we have no concerns with our daily ongoing operations. Everything's operating smoothly under our new conditions. We are proceeding with the essential construction projects. 2 of the 3 of those have started, including Albert Street and the traffic lights at Kincaid. All the contractors have filed their appropriate COVID plans. The public transit, as I had announced, is new launch date is July the 1st. So that will obviously be depending on any future provincial announcements, but that's the new launch date. And as the mayor already announced, the emergency daycare center is soon to be open, and hopefully within the next day or so we'll have that announcement of official opening. But at this time, people who qualify for those spots may contact the city of Stratford. The information is available on our website, and register for the emergency daycare center. We have learned as of late last week that both the Moncton, Elma Logan edition of the Child Care Center and the library, and the St. Mary's Child Care Center and kindergarten expansion are proceeding, restarting back up again. And again, the contractors have satisfied the municipality with their COVID plans. The one new thing is we are planning for a virtual town hall next Monday night from 5 to 6. It will be chaired by the mayor and moderated by the mayor with input from the senior management team. We are asking citizens to ask their questions in advance, and we will do a virtual town hall meeting answering any questions around the COVID issue. That is my report tonight, and I'm certainly open to any questions. Thank you, Council.
Thanks, Mr. Snell. Councillors, any of you have questions or comments on this report? If so, you're invited to indicate your interest in speaking to the clerk through the chat function. And the clerk is saying no requests at this point. So again, thanks, Chris, for the report. It's been certainly a busy week again, and a lot of progress is continuing to be made in our organizational efforts on COVID-19 response. That brings us to item 5.2 on our agenda, reports from the clerk's department. And first is item 5.2.1, in which we are asked to consider an application for consent to sever related to several parcels of land on Wallace Avenue North. I'll take note that the deputy mayor expressed that he would not be voting and participating in this, but there's no reason for him to leave this conference. May remain and hear what's being said. He just won't participate. At this time, then, I'll ask County Planner David Gundrum for an introduction to this matter. Welcome, Mr. Gundrum.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. Mayor, members of council. The report I'm about to present might be old hat, as you saw it in a different form just a week ago, but I'll go over the details nonetheless and just highlight the alteration from our last report that was provided on April 20th. So following applications for consent to sever, applications B14, B15, and B16-20 have been submitted by 1199 Wallace Avenue Holdings Incorporated, being the corporate name of the company owning the Listowel Ford car dealership site. on Road 164, north of Listowel. The applicants have applied for consent to sever for the purpose of creating 3 new lot additions to adjacent commercial properties that are adjacent to the Listowel Ford site. The subject property is irregular in shape, having an area of approximately 8.65 acres with frontage along Road 164. The 3 parcels that are proposed to be severed, the first parcel resulting from application B15 would be added to a existing highway commercial use currently owned by 6393250 Canada Incorporated, being the current site of Ideal Supply located to the south. And the retained parcel from application B15 would be added to a use located north of Ideal Supply, which is currently the site of a commercial, highway commercial business use, being a cluster of business and professional offices located out of same building, including Farm Credit Canada. Application B16 lastly would sever the third parcel of commercial land to be added to lands to the north of the Listowel Ford dealership, currently owned by 4H Automotive Limited, which is an automotive repair and collision center located north of the dealership. All of both the subject property and all of the adjacent properties to which the lot additions are proposed to be added are all within the urban fringe designation of the county official plan, all of which can be found on map schedule A4-1 for the urban fringe area located north of the town of Listowel boundary. Permitted uses within the urban fringe include general commercial as well as highway commercial uses. All of the properties involved are within the highway commercial zone C3-1 of the North Perth zoning bylaw. The -1 in this C3 zone, to which all the properties belong, has a slightly expanded list from the normal list of permitted uses in the sole C3 zone, and the majority of which are all of a highway commercial nature. If the applications were to be approved by the Land Division Committee, no relief from the local zoning bylaw would have to be sought in any case. All of the lots following the lot additions would satisfy all setback, frontage, lot area, and other requirements within the C3-1 zone. So no condition of consent has been recommended here expressing any need for relief from local zoning bylaw requirements. Within section 16 of the County of Perth official plan, 16-3-2-12 states that where an application for lot enlargement is to be approved, conditions shall be imposed requiring that the enlargement area be deeded in the same name as the abutting property being enlarged, as well as other matters required under the Planning Act. You'll note that our recommended condition 4 ties to these requirements as noted under section 16 of the official plan. And as well, under section 8 of the official plan, this section allows for lot additions within the urban fringe designation to occur, provided that a set of 7 criteria under section 852 are met. In our review, we have deemed that all criteria have been met in this case. So therefore, we have found that the proposed severances to be in conformity with the County of Perth official plan, and also thereby being consistent with the provincial policy statement. As noted at the end of our report, public meeting for the applications will be held at a future meeting of the County of Perth Land Division Committee, which is yet to be determined. And we are recommending that the Council of Municipality North Perth recommend to the Land Division Committee that each of the 3 applications for consent be approved, each of which subject to the same 4 conditions that are noted in the report. So we'll be cookie cutting each of those 4 across all 3 applications. I'd be happy to answer any questions that Council may have. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Councilors, any of you wishing to ask questions at this time may do so by indicating through the chat function to the clerk that you're interested in the floor. Seeing no indication from the clerk, then it's time for me to introduce the recommended resolution. Again, I'm feeling like I'm going to be reading the phone book. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the report entitled Applications for Consent to Sever number B1420, number B1520, and number B1620 by 1199 Wallace Avenue Holdings, Inc., affecting lands described as Lot 24, RCP 487, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 8310, Road 164, 23, dated April 27th, prepared by the county planner for information. And that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth recommends to the County of Perth Land Division Committee that the applications for consent to sever number B1420, number B1520, and number B1620 by 1199 Wallace Avenue Holdings, Inc., for property described as Lot 24, RCP 487, Wallace Ward, Municipality of North Perth, 8310, Road 164, Highway 23, be approved, subject to the following conditions for each application. One, that confirmation be received from the Municipality of North Perth that all taxes have been paid in full. Two, that any confirmation be received from the Municipality of North Perth that all financial requirements have been met, if any. Three, that confirmation be received from the Municipality of North Perth that the apportionment schedule for municipal drains in this area be reviewed and updated if necessary to the satisfaction of the Municipality of North Perth in accordance with Section 65.1 of the Drainage Act RSO, and that the owner will be responsible for all costs associated with this reapportionment. And four, that a solicitor's undertaking shall be received by the County of Perth Land Division Committee, which shall be to the effect the severed parcel be added as a lot addition to the identified abutting parcel with applicable conditions concerning deeding in the same name, application of Section 50, subsection 3 or subsection 5 of the Planning Act, and mortgage consolidation. Can I invite Councillor Johnston to move this and not ask me to repeat it?
Yes, I guess without the repeating, I would move that.
Thank you, Dave. And Deputy Mayor Callum, will you serve as our seconder for that one? Oh, he's declared the conflict. That's right. Thank you.
No.
Councillor Richardson, thank you. Thanks. Sorry about that. Councillor Richardson, can I invite you to be the seconder for this one?
I will second that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any discussion or debate, councillors are so willing to do should express their intent to the clerk at this time through the chat function. Seeing no expression of that indication, let's have that vote. And we have all councillors registered in the system and it's working now, so thank you. That is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. Have a good meeting.
Thanks, David. We're glad to have had you join us. We have no reports indicated from our interim manager of recreation as item 5.3 on the agenda, which thus brings us to item 5.4. I note again that there are certain councillors who have declared potential pecuniary interest in this matter, and they will not be voting on this item. Are there any questions about our report on accounts that is available under this agenda item? Councillors with questions may express them through the chat function to the clerk. Seeing no expression of questions, I have a resolution before me that reads as follows. That the following summary of accounts be received by council for information. The total expenditure is $2,380,052.95. Now I call on Councillor Rothwell to be our mover for that.
I so move the accounts.
And Councillor Seiler, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this matter? If you are willing to engage in such, please indicate to the clerk. We're seeing no indication of that, so let's have that vote. And that is everyone who intended to vote, so that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 5.5, and under the Environmental Services Department, we have two items tonight. First, let's consider item 5.5.1, which is a report pertaining to the annual inspection of wells that are providing municipal water. And I'll ask Mr. Mark Hackett, our Manager of Environmental Services, to address this item. Welcome, Mr. Hackett.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg and Council. Each year, the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks completes an inspection of our water systems. And this year, they were actually kind of late. We were waiting on the inspection for Atwood to be completed. It wasn't actually done until April of this year. However, the reports are now complete, and I've attached them for your information. Two of our systems, both Listowel and Molesworth, did receive a final inspection report rating of 100%, so that's good. Our Atwood system had a 95.79 due to one non-compliance issue. And the Gowanstown water system received an inspection report of 91.29. They had two non-compliances. So looking at the Atwood report, that had to do, the non-compliance there had to do with a chlorine analyzer in the distribution system. That analyzer's been in the system since 2006. And it's basically there just to record the distribution chlorine residuals. Additionally, there's a treated chlorine analyzer which is alarmed, and it's located at the point of entry to the distribution system at the Atwood well house. If at any point there was ever low chlorine sensed by the chlorine analyzer, it would alarm and shut the system down so that no unchlorinated water would enter the system. So this report, after 13 years of being inspected, since that analyzer was installed, this environmental officer found that something we weren't aware of, that there were no alarms on the Atwood, the distribution chlorine analyzer. That now that we know that, it's been taken care of and the alarms have been activated. They will never go off because the alarms in the distribution, in the well house, would alarm well before we'd have any issue in the distribution system. We were just using that chlorine analyzer as a record-keeping mechanism. The Gowanstown well, I think I've talked about this before. We had an issue on January 21st of 2019 where we had an electrical equipment failure in the pump house where the 24-volt power supply had an issue which caused, actually what happened is the pumps come on, but it didn't realize that, actually the pumps didn't come on when they were called to. And so there was some low chlorine residual water that would have entered the system. Our operations staff happened to be doing their inspection that day, noticed it right away. They restored chlorination and then immediately went out and tested the distribution where the chlorine residual was well above the 0.05. So there really was no issue, but it became an issue just with through the inspection. We reported everything that we were supposed to do, as our operators always do, and there's no further action required. So that's the four reports for our water systems. If there's any questions about any of those, I'd answer them for you.
Thanks, Mark. Councillors, any questions for Mr. Hackett in this report? If you're interested in asking them, please reach out to the clerk in the chat function. Seeing no indication of that, I have a resolution for consideration that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth received the report entitled 2019 Well Inspection Reports dated April 27th, 2020, and the attached 2019 Ministry of the Environment, Conservation Well Inspection Reports as information. Because we missed you earlier, Deputy Mayor Kellum, can I call on you to serve as our mover for that?
Yes, Mayor Todd, I will move that motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Andreessen, will you serve as our seconder?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? If there is some, please indicate your intention to speak to the clerk. Seeing no intention to speak from the clerk, let's have that. And that is carried. Thank you. Next up then is item 5.5.2. And here we are asked to receive the annual water audit report for 2019. I'll again call on Mr. Hackett to speak to this one. Welcome.
Yes, this report is just a look at each of our water systems separately and to look at how much water was produced in each system and how much water we've actually lost in the system. So looking at the first one is the Listowel water system, and you can see the highlighted area. So basically these are all the same. The first part will be the total water supplied, and that's taken from the water meter in the well house. And then we have the second number is the authorized consumption, and that's from our meters. So that's what actually gets billed out. And then we have unmetered authorized consumption, and that would be for things like hydrant flushing or fire protection and the filling of the Listowel pool, which I don't have a meter on, things like that. But we'd actually can account for those losses. And then we're finally left with the unaccounted for water, which is considered the water loss. So in Listowel, the water loss was 3%, which is a very good number. Looking at Atwood, that number of water loss was 14%, which is up substantially from previous years for Atwood, and there was a reason for that. There was a leak that was detected in the system, and it actually showed up twice. The first time that the leak happened, after taking quite a while to find, because leaks in small systems can be very difficult to find. The owner, it was on the owner's side of the property, so it was their responsibility, and they just had the leak patched. And then that happened, it leaked again at another time, so we eventually found it again, and this time they replaced it from the curb stop all the way to the house. So the interesting thing about that, not only are these leaks difficult to find, but in a small system like Atwood, where they average about 80 cubic meters a day, a leak of 20 cubic meters a day or more seems very substantial. While if this leak occurred in a larger system like Listowel, we wouldn't even be we wouldn't be able to probably even notice that it was occurring unless someone called it in. So that's Atwood. Gowanstown is very typical at its 10%. It's usually right around that way. And Molesworth is again high at 18%. However, it's getting better every year. And I'll just get Pat to move to the very last slide, which shows the water loss trending. And we can see that the red line is Molesworth. And in 2015, it was up around 38%. And it's down to 18%. We have found a few leaks there. Again, they're very difficult to find. It's an old system. You can see that the Atwood one jumped up. It was normally less than 5% over the last 4 years, and it's jumped up. We're actually expecting that to be not real good again for 2020, as we found there was a leak that was extremely difficult to find, and they finally did locate it and solve the problem, but it'll show up here for 2020. Listowel is continuing to trend downwards, which is good. And what am I left with? Gowanstown is pretty well always right around that 10% range, 10 to 15%. So that's my report for the water audit. I could answer any questions if there are any.
Councillors, do any of you have questions for Mr. Hackett on this report? If so, please indicate your intention to speak to the clerk through the chat function. Seeing no expression of that, then I have a resolution for our consideration that reads as follows: that the municipality of North Perth receive the 2019 water audits report, dated April 2020. Can I invite Councillor Anstett to be our mover for that one?
Yes, I'll move that.
Thank you. And Councillor Behrens, will you serve as a seconder?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate amongst councillors? Please again express your intention if you have a desire to speak to the clerk. And we're seeing no expression of same, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right. Thanks, Mark, for your reports. We have no indication of reports from our manager of operations as item 5.6, and we don't have one from our fire chief as item 5.7, which brings us to item 6 on our agenda. For item 6.1, councillors, are there any reports you would like to ask staff or of our committees? To request again the opportunity to speak, please so indicate in the chat feature of our web conferencing tool. Seeing nothing there, then we will move on to item 7 on our agenda. We have received no items of correspondence beyond that already shared. I don't think we've shared any other correspondence tonight, so we don't have any correspondence beyond that. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which allows council to consider and enact bylaws. And we have no bylaw proposals before us tonight beyond those already addressed on our agenda, including what lies ahead for the confirmatory bylaw. That brings us to item number 9 on our agenda. Are there any notices of motion, councillors attending this evening? And please express your interest in speaking to the clerk. Seeing no expression of interest there, that brings us to item 10 on our agenda. For item 10.1, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? If you would like to speak, again, please so indicate to the clerk through the chat window. No? Okay, so we have no indication there as well. That brings us to agenda item 11. We have no matters to consider in a closed session of council this evening. We will have a special council meeting to follow this, in which there is a closed session item to be considered. We thus have nothing to report on our closed session, which brings us to item 13 on our agenda. I will note again the declarations of 2 members of council pertaining to pecuniary interests, so they will not be voting on this matter. But council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I have a draft for our confirmatory bylaw, number 61-2020, which reads as follows. The bylaw number 61-2020 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth be introduced, read, and considered read a first, second, and third time, and be finally passed. That said bylaw be signed by the mayor and the clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation. And I invite Councillor Duncan, to be our mover for that one.
So moved.
Thank you. And Councillor Johnston, would you serve as our second?
Yes, I would second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion or debate? If so, please indicate to the clerk through the chat window. Seeing no indication of that, let's have that vote. That is carried. Thank you. And that brings us to adjournment, councillors. We have completed the deliberations and taken action on the business that has come before us this evening. Before I read a motion to adjourn, is there any further business? Seeing no expression of this, I have a motion that the council meeting adjourns at 7:40 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, May 4th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Can I call on Deputy Mayor Kellum to be our mover for that?
Yes, Mayor Kasenberg, I will make that motion to adjourn.
Thank you. And Councillor Richardson, will you second that?
Yes, I will second that motion.
Thank you. Since that's an undebatable motion, let's have that vote. And we've lost Councillor Duncan. Councillor Duncan, what say you?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. With that vote, that motion is carried. That means that we are adjourned and council will meet again, as I said, on Monday, May 4th, 2020. Councillors, we have another session to engage in. Do we wish to wait till the appointed hour? We will wait till the appointed hour of 8 o'clock, which is when that meeting will convene, a special meeting of council. Until that point, you can either stay connected or come back in and connect in 20 minutes time or so.